Good morning, New York City! Welcome to the Sandeman's Tour. Today, I want to show you the real New York City, okay? Because you walk around and you pass by these buildings, probably many times, even if you're a New Yorker, you may not know the true stories of this concrete jungle. So today, I want you guys to really have fun. Bond together, and let's go on this journey like a little railroad team across downtown Manhattan. We're going to start, now the reason why we picked Bowling Green as the opening of our tour is because this is the birthplace of New York City. And it's the birthplace of New York City because in 1626, this guy, this Dutch governor, Peter Minuit, he bought the island of Manhattan for a very expensive sum of $24. It's a really good deal, and today you might be able to get 2 bacon cheeseburgers for the same amount. But when I read that story, and it happened in this location, right? This is where it was bought from the Native Americans. Captain came over, they did the exchange, and when I read the story, I started thinking, you know, Native Americans are pretty smart. Why did this happen? How did this happen? And why did they make a deal for only $24 to sell this entire beautiful island? And then I read into it a little more. I found out that, number one, it wasn't just $24. That was a number that they, it was $24 worth of merchandise, and it was a number that they calculated in 1850. And so it's been over 150 years, and they really didn't adapt it to inflation. So if we were to say today, it would probably be closer to a figure of $2,000 that Manhattan was bought for. But still, that's a pretty awesome deal. I would take that, you know. But anyway, the Indians, the second point I want to make is that the Indians did not believe in any concept of ownership, right? So here I'm defending them. I'm telling you that these are incredible people who didn't believe that you could possibly sell a place or buy a place or own a piece of land, you know? This was just like air. And if somebody came up to you and said, I want to buy this piece of air, I want to put it in a jar and buy it for $24, I would sell it, and I would think that I was doing a great deal, you know? Don't you agree? I would think that would be true. But so the Indians are smarter than we think, and a lot of times when we just think of that story, we think, wow, that's really crazy how they just bought it for that little, and now it's this gigantic, amazing place that we're sitting on. So the next thing I want to take you is I want to show you a little bit more about the stories of Bowling Green, right? Number one, it's called Bowling Green because it used to be a bowling green, an actual bowling green, but it wasn't just a bowling green. It was a cattle market, it was a marching ground, a parade ground where soldiers marched and drilled during all the wars that New York has witnessed. It was also a farmer's market, and it's still a farmer's market. And it wasn't until 1733 that they got together this small group of 3 men, and they figured, we want to make this a park. And the city said, okay, so they leased the land, and this became the first public park in New York City. Now, when you think of public park, you think of all sorts of people gathering at the park. And yes, that did happen, but the majority of the time, this was a place of relaxation for the elite. This area here that we're sitting on was the most expensive, the most luxurious area of New York. And at the time, it wasn't a big city like it is today, obviously, but it's still, this was the cream of the crop, most fancy homes around this area. The governor's mansion was right around the corner at Whitehall. And so during lunchtime, fancy ladies with fancy hats and dresses, they would gather here and have lunch. Kids would be playing around. So you think, yeah, it's just beautiful and peaceful and calm. But don't want to get profane. But when S went down, this place was pretty tumultuous. It was like, go big or go home. And this is where they came to celebrate big victories. This is where they came to protest against the monarchy or whatever it is that they were fighting against. And this became a pretty alive place, let's say. So I want to give you one example Okay, Stamp Act passes, right? We're under British rule. And so all these people, all these commoners, they march down Broadway. They're really angry. They got like spears, and they're really mad at the monarchy for passing this outrageous Stamp Act. So they march down to the governor's mansion right here at Whitehall, and they dare the guy to come out. Now these people, these early Americans, are really setting the mark of what it means to be an American, and they're fighting against the British monarchy. So they dare the guy to come out. They're obviously not kidding around. Finally, right, King George III at the time repeals the Stamp Act. So now they think a little more fondly of the king, and everything's fine. And at the time, under British rule, it was very much like that. It was like, we love you, King George, or like, we hate you, King George. It was up and down, depending on what was happening, what relationship they had. It fluctuated a lot. And when he repealed the Stamp Act, they loved him. And they loved him so much that they built this amazing statue of him riding a horse. Now, I would be so flattered if somebody ever built a statue of me riding a horse. So the king must have been really, I don't know what he felt about it, but they had a huge statue of him on a horse right in the middle of Bowling Green, and they honored him, and it was beautiful. Obviously, this is not a love story with King George III, so a year later, things were so kind of crazy that they had to build a fence around him. There was still a lot of protests going on, and really, top of the game happened 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was read to George Washington's troops right out on Broadway. So they read the Declaration of Independence, people get so riled up that they march down again. They march down Broadway, and where do they go? They come to Bowling Green, and this time they're so angry and so excited to be free Americans that they take down the statue, take the king's head, put it on a spear, carry it around. I imagine there's a bunch of fire, people screaming, kids on their, maybe not kids, but I would want to be part of it if I were a little boy in that area, right? Whatever, but they tear down the statue, break it into pieces, and let me tell you what they did. I love this about early Americans. They took all the pieces and they shipped it over to Connecticut and had it made into 40,000 Patriot bullets. They're not kidding around. Obviously, they're not kidding around. These are not like, middle people. They're not vanilla. They're either like super dark chocolate or nothing at all. And they really did that, and they went crazy. They tore down the statue. That was a very symbolic move, right? They're tearing down the monarchy. And one neat little thing that I didn't know about, that now I know, and now you will know too, is the fence. This fence has been here since 1771. It's a very, very long time for a fence to be around, right? And what they did was, on every 12th spoke of the fence, they had the king's crown. Because that's Britain, They just had to prove to you that they were in control all the time. And on this day, in 1776, they took a bunch of saws and they sawed each and every one of the crowns off. Yeah, and they shipped it to Connecticut to be made into the bullets. They shipped that whole thing onto Connecticut, 40,000 bullets out of this, and we can go and actually touch, you can touch the very spot that the crowns were on. That's pretty neat. Now, speaking of statues, we're going to go to the world's most famous bull right around here. Now, if I were a bull in like Nebraska, I would be so pissed at this bull for getting all the attention. I mean, this bull is like so spoiled. He's what? 87? He's 26 years old, and he's the world's most famous bull. And he's made of this bronze copper, and he's stood here for all that time. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, number one, why it's a bull. Number two, why it was a cause of controversy. Number three, what it represents and who it was made by. And we can stop at 3, and then I'll just tell you more stuff. This guy, Arturo de Mondica, He's an Italian sculptor. And 1987, stock market is doing pretty well. He wants to honor American finance, so he builds this statue. Now, why did he pick a bull? Because in stock world, right? In case you haven't been on Wall Street like I have, I have no idea. But bullish means that the market is doing well. Okay, so that's why he picked a bull. So that's pretty interesting. And he builds this gigantic 7,000-pound statue. And he's a pretty bold guy. Once again, you know, these people are go big or go home. They tend to make history. He pops it up right in front of the New York Stock Exchange, under the Christmas tree, one beautiful, cold December afternoon. Now, the police wasn't too happy about this because it's illegal. You can't just like, you know, who does that? Who just like plants a 7,000-pound statue in the middle of a major landmark, right? Arturo does, and he did it. Now, people love the statue, but despite all this love for the statue, the authorities were like, okay, well, it's illegal, so we're gonna have to take it away. And there's this huge public outcry. People aren't too happy about that. Actually, not too happy. They're pretty angry at that. You know, it's a beautiful statue. It's a bull. Who doesn't like bulls? It's America. So they decide, okay, well, we're going to compromise and we're going to put the statue downtown Bowling Green where it's not going to be disturbed or cause any trouble. We're going to put it there temporarily so you guys can pass by it and then you can kiss it goodbye and then we'll find a new place for it, right? But actually, it's been here since then. It wasn't temporary, and I guess people loved it so much that they kept it for 26 years. And that's pretty nice, and it's still here. One thing that I always wondered is why there's so much security. I mean, I understand that people really love the bull, they want to take pictures with the bull, but I think one major thing that happened was during the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street protests, they had a ballerina literally jump on top of the bull, and they shot a picture of her and made a promotional poster. Now, this being a major landmark of New York City, they felt like that was pretty invasive, and so they started protecting the bull, and now it's not only the most famous bull in America, it's the most protected celebrity bull in the world. And that's why we see all those people here gathering around it. It's pretty interesting. Oh, one last thing. I just want to make sure, in case it hasn't caught your eyes yet. Now they say, as the myth goes, you have to touch, you have to rub against copper for good luck, right? Now, as you can see, it doesn't take a lot to notice that the most admired part of the bull, I guess, by some, is the parts that make it a bull and not a cow. So I'm just going to leave you on that note, and you can draw your own conclusions, and we're going to move forward with the tour.